Welcome to the John Show with your hosts, John Doogie Clouser.
All right. What's going on, everyone? How are you? We are here on a new episode of the Juan Solo Show with your host, me, Juan D. Clouser, with, was this episode 162? Yeah, 162 of this awesome, what we like to call probably the most influential, if I could say the word right, the most inspiring, the most heartwarming podcast out there. Really, honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't see how there could be anything better than this, because that's the mindset you can have now. If you just scream loud enough that your thing is the best, or that you're the best, or whatever you're doing needs to be known and needs to be shown, then at a point people just basically just submit to you. It's a weird thing. It hasn't happened yet over here, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing this podcast a little bit later. So I normally do this on Sunday, but it's Monday now at like 2:30 in the afternoon, and it's like it's just like yesterday. I was like, you know what? You worked your butt off, John, this whole month. This whole past month with this stupid ass story that it's like, it's so funny because I slave over making like a 2,800 word story for a contest, and I do it and I'm like, okay, what's the idea? I get the idea, start writing it, get it going, start editing it. I'm like, this is a big pile of shit. This is just a big pile of shit. And at the end of it, it's still a big pile of shit. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's at least a decently formed pile of crap, because there's a nice little, it's humbling one, because you realize anything that you do that takes time and effort, and you can't just do in like a flash. And like anything, you gain a nice little respect for it, and it's very nice. It's humbling. And then like when I finish it, I'm like, this is interesting. I'm like, so look, John, not that hard, is it? Not that hard to do this. It's hard. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's easier out of all the art forms. A lot of like, because there's no, you just, as long as you just show up every day, because that's what I think when I get to it every night. When I write, I think this is, I get myself into a mindset. I do this for sleeping too. But what I do is I'm like, okay, John, you got to turn the lights on. You got to flip the close sign to on. Unlock the front door. Turn on, the fireplace, the little fireplace thing over here. And you just have to sit down and you have to write, and it's going to suck. And it's going to be fucking awful, and you're not going to like it, but you just got to show up, because if you just sit here and you open the store up, what can happen is like ideas can walk in, and then sometimes they're really good ideas, and sometimes they are awful, and most of the time those are the ones that you use, and that's what's so great, because then at the very end of it you have this huge awful pile of nothing. But it's your big awful pile of nothing, and then you can stand behind it, and that's what I do. No, you just have to show up every day and do it a little bit, a chip out way. I have this last story, and the last structure, the way I did it was it was a 2-month process where the first month was writing it and writing a draft. Don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit about like what I write on it. It's awful. Most of it, like, because it's like at the end of it, it's like 3,800 words. Because most of the time, on average, these story contests are like 2,500 word contests, 3,000 word contests, and you start off with like a lot more words. At least I like to, than what I have, because it's easier to cut away versus than trying to have to fill in places that you don't know. Like, you can cut away, take things out. It's much easier. Then you can put them back in. If you just, because at the end of it, you'll have like 40 copies of this story, because every time you make a change, you just resave it as a different version. And so at the end of the month, you have a story. Well, you don't have a story. You just have an idea of what a structure of it is, kind of. And what's so interesting then is going in like the first, like, I would say the week and a half was a lot of just surgery where I'm like, wow, I have to get rid of that. That made no sense. Get rid of that. And then taking an idea that was like something you wrote on day 26 and putting it up on day 3 in the area where you put on day 3, you're like, oh, that works so much better. But you would have never gotten to day 26 if you wouldn't even started with day 3. So it's just this insane thing that you have to just think of it like small little baby steps, and it's just horrific. And what's so funny is like I don't get stressed out by that. I get stressed more out by like, okay, I have to clean the kitchen, I have to do laundry, I need it, I should do some sort of sweeping, like some like those. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna get any of this done. I have to make my meal prep. I was like, oh, I'm never gonna get any of this shit done. But yeah, like I sit down and like, well, great, maybe because I don't have to move. I think that's what it is. I just don't have to move. If I had to move, then it'd be a lot different. But it's just, I finished it. But that huge crescendo was just basically because like yesterday I fucked off and I didn't do anything, which felt great. It was awesome. But then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, well, I have like a lot of more stuff to do. And it's not even like that hard. It's just, I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, you could have just got some of it done yesterday, but it felt so good not to do a goddamn thing. It feels so good. It feels so good to just sit and watch TV. Like, what was we watching? We were Shrinking. It was great. Such a 30-minute like Apple show, like well tightly knit. Like, you know how tight your script has to be, but the only thing that sucks with like when you do the 30-minute script version versus the hour, it almost feels like you have to. It's a hard tie-in. So your story, there's your main story. So story A, B, and C. So your main story A, your second story, which basically is like the main character with another character, and then your third story C, is usually like that's where you learn little bits and pieces about your sub characters. So then it's usually a little interaction between just a random 4th and 7th character, and that's where they can build up, and that's where a lot of actors get their come ups in. But that's because that's where you kind of like you do a little bit of. You're basically, what is it, featuring? You're doing like a feature act, or you're opening up for, if you think of it like a stand-up, you're doing like a 5-minute set and just see what you can do. If you can do anything to fucking pull the story together. And so what sucks is that you'll learn these story C, and you'll learn about it, and then it gets like something, you'll learn it, a conflict will happen, and then you don't ever get a resolution. It just kind of happens at the very end because they tie everything together. You see the main character, and usually there's a big crescendo because you only have 30 minutes, roughly. 30 minutes. I guess Apple, you really do have 30 minutes. It's usually roughly 24 minutes of writing where you have, because of commercials, you have to cut things out. So, I mean, I guess you still film for it, but you don't have it. But as the finished product, you don't know as the viewer that there was more that came with story C. But then usually what happens is like the thing that they lost a shoe, and at the very end you see that sub character holding the shoe that they lost and like giving a thumbs up, and it shows you as an audience member that it's, oh, their story ended, so we don't need to know anything else because, oh, they got their shoe back. Boom. And it works, but it just comes off a little cheesy. So that's the only thing that sucks about, the only negative critique I would say about that show would be that. But, Harrison Ford, great. He plays a man who has Parkinson's disease, and he's like, damn, like it's just so It's so funny what they do to these old white guy actors, where like they become this man. They're either a man with Parkinson's disease, or they are the most stoic guy like Kevin Costner in Yellowstone. That's the only two things you can have. You can't have just a normal dude who's just like, he's just like he can't be the funny guy. He can't be the gross out king. He can't be the main. It's none of that. It has to be only two things. He's either almost dead, or he's the most epic guy, and he gets shot with a bullet, and then magically he had his cell phone in his pocket, and like it was right on it, and that stopped the bullet. And you're like, things like that happen, and you're like, okay, right, okay. I mean, I guess if this is what we're gonna do with this, but they're just, granted, like Yellowstone. There's nothing about that show that says that this could actually be real, except the Indian guy with the very long hair who says he doesn't say a word. It is the greatest. And every time I see him, I'm like, if I wouldn't have cut my hair could have been like that. I could have had Pocahontas braids and looked like a complete dipshit. Because the thing is that he has melanin, and his skin is of complexion. Mine has none. And so when I do it, I just look like a white guy with fucking Pocahontas braids. And people are like, why is there a white guy over there with Pocahontas braids? Not knowing that my great grandpa was an Indian, was a fucking Indian. And I'm not, and even just saying that, I sound like one of those white people that are just like, no, I'm one of ya. I'm one of y'all. It's a fun game. So did you guys catch that national championship game last night? Yesterday afternoon? It's like so funny. It was a great game. Was it LSU was the underdog, which I didn't think so. Like, I knew Iowa was good, but I didn't think they were like a runaway victory kind of thing. Like, everyone thought they were going to win because they only gave LSU a 5% chance of winning or something. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, LSU has a bunch of like ballers, and they a really good crew of girls that can play. Because I was like, didn't they lose last year in like the first round, or was it the first round, or the second round, or something like that? And they had like a pretty good stacked team. And then they had that really tall girl, which I thought she was like 6'7", maybe because she just that what's her name? I can't remember her name now. Angel, that's what it was. Angel something. I don't know, but she's the 6'3" girl, the one that did the fucking ring thing that everyone now is all upset about, which the ring and the face thing, which in turn I understand. It was because the reason why they got upset by it was because it was during the game, and then they called that. No one would have gave a shit about that facial thing if that Caitlyn chick wouldn't have gotten that technical. Because of that, because you can't do things like that. Well, one, she didn't deserve it, but you can't in the open guitar strum, chord strum of the world of America. You can't do hurtful things like that to white girls, and then have that white girl lose, and then have a black girl who the whole time she's been in the collegiate atmosphere, she has done nothing but be very vocal. That's part of her game. She even admitted after the game when she was being interviewed, I'm very intense for even my teammates. It takes time for my teammates to adjust to me, let alone a team who I'm playing who don't know me to play to vibe with me. So it's like, you're not understanding. Like, she says that she'll get in the face of her own team, but you need to make this fucking shot right now. You need to do it. So what makes you think that she's not going to do that to some girl from Iowa? So, like, what makes you think she's not going to do this? Now, granted, probably not the best of time. No. But then they show, then I was like, okay, I thought that was like, I'm like, okay, I get that, probably shouldn't have done it. But if it wasn't that technical, because that technical dramatically changed the atmosphere and the vibe of that whole game. because I was on a run and they were getting close. They were within 5, and then that technical happened. They said that she cussed and then threw the ball. Caitlin, the girl from Iowa. So I'm like, I saw nothing, but then that happens, and then you can't. Then clearly this game meant a lot, right? For both organizations, because this was going to be the first championship for either one, and so with all that, I get it. It wasn't the time and place, but it was. The thing is, then they show videos of the Caitlyn girl doing the same facial thing, and I'm probably assuming that the reason why Angel did it then, I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. She probably did it was to be a callback to her, to be like, I'm doing the thing that you did to everyone else, to all these like juggernaut schools that you guys beat on the way to get to us, and then like I'm gonna do it back to you to show like, hey, you don't like to me. Then at that point, if I was someone who was doing that kind of thing, and then someone else, I would hate it at the moment, but in turn, I would be like, oh, they at least know my game. They at least have been watching me. I wouldn't take it as a disrespect. Because I'm like, that was a dickhead move at the time, but then you would think about it and you're like, oh, well, this person actually somewhat respects me and is using my gesture back on me. It's the same thing like in what WWE, when a wrestler does like a signature move of someone else's signature move on that person, and it's just like it's a slap in the face kind of thing, but it's like an homage in the sense of like, hey, I know your game kind of thing. So it's just when. But what's so funny is that it dramatically goes to this racial thing where it's okay for white girls to do it because it's like, oh, she's been like killing it. And she really was. That Caitlyn girl was destroying. She was averaging 31 points a game. And so, like, I get it. And granted, I get it too. Angel, she was mouthing and like she didn't sit the whole first half because she had, 3 fouls? 3 fouls in the first half. Like, she got in the first quarter and then she sat the whole second quarter. So I get that. But at the end of the day, like, the team scored 102 points. In what world have you ever played on a basketball team and scored 102 points, and most likely didn't have full control of that game or did not win that game? Like, it's very rare that you score 102 points in any level, really. It's getting less normal now in the NBA because nobody plays defense. And plus, their whole thing is they're trying to get to like 150, 160 points in a game, which is insane because no one plays defense. But it is what it is. And so you can't be upset by that. It's just like they were in control. Granted, like the refs too. Like, if you really want to talk about something, you should be talking about the refs, because those refs they dipped their chip into that dip so much more than they needed to make sure that to dictate the outcome of that game. I really started through that last little bit right there. But it's just like, that's what we should be more upset by that, because they were just so super inconsistent with their calls. One call would be like a dramatic hack, and then the same thing would happen down the other side of the court. They would call a foul there, but they didn't call it down there. And then they would do stupid ass like makeup calls, and you're just like, this is stupid as shit. You guys have to like play. You guys you're what you're doing is you're playing too much in the game. You're trying to be too much of a participant instead of just a viewer or a controller of the cats on the court. Like, just, I didn't mean it like that, pussies. Yeah, I guess I wasn't meaning. I was meaning like, hurting cats, but most someone was going to turn that the wrong way. It's just, in closing of that, it's just, yeah, white girls could do it, and if a black girl does it, she can't win the game. It's just weird. It's just it's just stupidest shit in the world. It's just dumb to me. It's just incredibly dumb, because they gave her respect. They even said, like, like, Caitlin, you played a good game, but, you didn't play good enough to beat us. Like, even that was still, like, they're talking shit because it was LSU. Like, how do you not think going into it that a basketball team from LSU wouldn't talk shit and wouldn't play a game like that to try to get in your head? What makes you think they wouldn't do that? Like, that would be one of the first things I'd be thinking. I'm like, okay, this team's probably a team most likely that is someone who's going to try to get into our heads, and they're going to say some shit, and you just have to be calm. You have to just not listen to it. You're going to have to just, we'll do our cadences to each other, and that'll be it. We can't react to any of their shit. You can't do any of that, because if once you start doing that, the game is out of our hands. The game will be it's such an elementary thing that any coach would tell their team. Duh. And it's like the people who get upset by these things are clearly are individuals who have never won any sort of individual accomplishment athletically, because if it did, they would understand the sense of, like, knowing that you're beating the shit out of someone, or you were neck and neck with someone, and then you finally gave them the couple last jabs that needed to win the game. And then, like, yeah, of course, what you're going to do is you're going to be fucking, yeah, because you played, how many games did they play? They play almost 40 games. And LSU was 36-6. 36-4, 36-5, something like that. Like, what do you expect? And it's hard. It's hard as fuck to win. Like, it's hard to win national championships, especially in college. Well, fuck, in any league, in any hell, I went to a school. We went to the state championship 4 years in a row. We lost. We got fourth place every year. It was fucked up. So it's just what it is. So, you could go beat Gonzaga. Gonzaga was 36-0, and then they lost in this championship game. Was it to Villanova? I think that was Villanova that year. So, dude, just, yeah, give it up to them. It's the school's first thing. Do you understand? These girls are the first team, men and women and men, in basketball to win a national championship. Like, they're good. They're forever in history of that school. Like, not just that year of, like, winning the national championship, but also for, like, their school. Whenever they go back, no matter how old they are, no matter if they're alive or dead, they're always going to be on that team. They're going to be known as being on that team that won the very first national championship for their school that had been around since, 1814? Like, fuck. Like, that's insane. That's cool shit. That's it. Why would you think that they're not going to talk a little shit? Like, they fucking deserve it. And another thing I learned, too, is the fact that you see a lot of moving around in women's sports, in women's basketball. I didn't know that. I didn't know that happened as much, which, I mean, good for you. Like, get it done. I'm all about player control. Like, it's so fucked up. They take a year of eligibility or get the city year out. It's like, why? Like, why? Just because I was 17, 18 years old and I chose to go to one school. I didn't, like, realize that things weren't going to, I thought it was going to be a lot different than it was. And so I want to go to another organization to play. It's like, and I'm, if I have the grades, I'm athletically capable of doing this, like transferring to another school. Why can't I do this and not be punished? Like, it's so fucked up. But then these schools can use my likeness and everything. Well, they used to be able to, and not pay me. So, and they want to say that I get an education, which in truth, let's be fucking real, they don't do shit. You're there to play a fucking sport. Like, why are they LSU looked at them to play a sport, not because they knew how to carry a 7. Like, maybe they were also good at that. I'm not saying they can't be good at that too, but I'm just saying, like, their first thing was like, hey, this person is really good at putting this into this hoop, this ball into this hoop. Oh, and they're also really good at fucking long division. Great, awesome, twofer. Or maybe they're just like, hey, this guy is just really good at knowing what a 36 dive is. Great, awesome, let's win a national championship. They win a national championship. He can't read for shit. Oh well, like, he won a national championship and he got an education. He got 4 years of schooling. He won. I don't know. Now he's playing in the NFL. I don't see, like. Why are we acting like their first thing is, and what makes you anything like, another thing, like, I would love you to tell me what's this such and such person's major? What are they doing? You're so upset by them going to another school by transferring to another school, tell me what their major is. Tell me what something more than what their fucking shot average is. Like, tell me something more. Like, don't act like you're holier than thou. Like, they have the ability to do this. Just let them fucking do it. It's ignorant. It's an ignorant thought. I spent a lot of time on sports this week. I got this book. So someone's like, "Hey, I know you do a podcast. You should read this book." And it's the treason book of table manners, and it's basically a bunch of things that women should do. Well, I think it's like Catholicism, a branch of Catholicism. It has like a really one of those weird pictures on the front of it that's like, oh, that looks very religious and very scary at the same time, and I can see a lot of misogyny that's going to be involved in what I'm about to read. And you're right, a lot of misogyny. So it's a book full of table manners. What I found funny about it is because, like, I took etiquette classes growing up, and how to eat with a multiple thing of silverware and all that horse crap, which I have never once. I take that back. Maybe 2 times in my life I've ever had to use anything I've ever learned. And when I went to these events, I could have easily just watched and been fine and watched how everyone else ate and would have just followed the same thing. There would have been no need for me to waste several Saturdays going to these stupid classes and just feeling like a big pile of dumb. Because I'm like, am I here because I need to learn etiquette class? Am I here because I'm like the brown kid and I don't know English that well? I need to like associate myself better with like this herd of people now that I live with. Anyway, so here's one that I found really funny. Never put a second morsel of food into her mouth until the first one is swallowed. Ain't that the fucking truth? So, it's things like that. Never to order a waitress to bring anything. She will request what she wishes. There is a vast difference. Don't even know what that means. To measure according to her needs the amount of food she takes upon her plate. It's like, okay. And what's so weird is like this. This is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one. To use her knife for cutting only, and then next to it is like a picture of a chandelier. It makes no sense. There's no sense to any of this, and it's just one sentence, and it's just a one sentence little thing. To use her fork for conversing food to her mouth, but never in a manner of a spoon except for small vegetables. What the hell does that mean? So, but I like it. I mean, like, I get it because, what's so funny is the people who write this stuff are like people who are like, yeah, well, women need this stuff because their brains are smaller. And then like they turn right back around and like they're the biggest pussy hounds in the world. It makes no sense. Like, why are you going to disrespect the thing that you're trying so hard to get inside of? To me, it makes no goddamn sense. But, hey, it is what it is. Never to handle any article of service with soiled hands. And then next to it is just a cafeteria with a big crucifix up on the wall, like a big solid like 10 by 10 Jesus being solidly crucified, which is one of the most terrifying fucking things in the world. Don't you think that's terrifying? Who was like, we had all these different things. We have all these things to celebrate like this religion. Jews went straight just to a star. We're like, we ain't gonna think too much about this. Star of David. There's really not much connection to it. Probably is, but I just have never really looked into it, and probably or was sleeping during the service where I should have learned this. Anyway, as a woman, you should not touch anything and serve anybody if you have soiled hands. God damn it. That's what God says. Anyway, so that's the end of the podcast. I dropped my phone on the ground. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.